I spend my mornings writing letters. Not love letters. Not thank you notes. Letters of apology. To people I destroyed with my own mouth. I'm 65 years old, and I have a box full of envelopes that will never be opened. Some of those people moved away, some won't speak to me, and some are gone. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that my tongue was a weapon of mass destruction, and the only light that truly destroyed was mine. So if you have a few minutes, let me tell you what happened to me. Because maybe, just maybe, you won't have to reach 65 with a box like mine. I was sharp. Everybody said so. Quick mind, quicker mouth. And when I got into the corporate world, I realized something dangerous. Words could be used like currency. If I said the right thing at the right time to the right person, I could climb. And if I said the wrong thing about the right person, I could climb even faster. So that's exactly what I did. I became a master of the well-placed rumor, a surgeon with gossip. While other people were trying to do good work, I was figuring out whose reputation I could quietly dismantle to make myself look better. I would go to my boss with a concerned look on my face and say, "I don't want to cause trouble, but I think you should know." And then I would plant a seed of doubt about a colleague. Every single time. And it worked. I got promoted. I got corner offices. I got everything that money and manipulation could buy. But here's what nobody tells you about building your career on the ashes of other people's dignity. You end up surrounded by people who say, "Yes, sir," but you can see it in their eyes. They don't respect you. They fear you. And fear is the loneliest currency in the world. I had employees who would go silent the moment I walked into a room. I told myself that meant I was powerful. Now I know it just meant I was poison. And the worst part? I went to church every Sunday. Front row, suit pressed, Bible in hand. I sang the hymns. I raised my hands. I said amen louder than anyone. But the moment we walked out those doors and sat down at the Sunday table, my tongue went right back to work. I would spend the meal criticizing the pastor's sermon, picking apart the worship team, judging the woman who sat in the back row because she didn't dress the way I thought she should. My wife would sit across from me, quiet, just moving food around her plate while I turned our Sunday lunch into a courtroom. I remember my youngest daughter. She must have been about 12. She looked at me during one of those meals and said, "Dad, if church makes you this angry, why do we even go?" I told her to be quiet. But that question haunted me for 30 years, because she saw what I refused to see. My mouth was praising God for 1 hour and cursing His people for the rest of the week. The scriptures warn that a spring cannot pour out fresh water and bitter water from the same opening. But that is exactly what I was, a poisoned well dressed in a Sunday suit. My religion was a performance, and my tongue never got the memo that I was supposed to be a changed man. But if you want to know where the real damage was done, it was at home. I brought that same sharp tongue into my marriage and into my children's lives. I criticized everything, the way my wife cooked, the grades my daughters brought home. Nothing was ever good enough because deep down, I didn't feel like I was good enough. And I made sure everyone around me felt the same emptiness I carried inside. I would say things in anger that a father should never say. Words that once spoken could never be taken back. I told my oldest son he would never amount to anything. I said it in the heat of an argument, but he heard it in the cold of every morning after. He left home at 17. My middle daughter stopped calling, and my youngest, the one who asked that question at the dinner table, she moved across the country and only sends a card at Christmas. No return address. My wife stayed. But something in her eyes died a long time ago. She doesn't argue with me anymore. She doesn't say much at all. And I realize now that her silence is the loudest verdict I have ever received. I won every argument in this house, every single one. And the prize for winning was an empty table and a marriage that breathes but no longer lives. This house used to be full of noise, laughter, music playing too loud upstairs. Now the only sound is the clock on the wall. And that clock is not keeping time. It is counting what I've lost. It took me years to understand what happened. I kept blaming everyone else. My children were ungrateful. My wife was cold. My coworkers were disloyal. It was always someone else's fault. But one night, I will never forget this. I was sitting in this chair, in this room, completely alone. The television was off. The phone hadn't rung in days. And in that silence, I heard something I had been running from my entire life. The truth. And the truth was simple and devastating. The common denominator in every broken relationship in my life was me. I learned from the scriptures that the mouth speaks from the overflow of the heart. And when I finally looked at my own heart, I understood why my words had been so destructive. My heart was sick, full of insecurity, full of pride, full of envy, full of fear. And all of that sickness came pouring out through my tongue every single day onto every person who made the mistake of getting close to me. The Bible teaches that the tongue is a small thing, but it sets an entire forest on fire. I looked at my life, my career, my church, my family, and saw nothing but scorched earth. And I was the one holding the match. I wish I could tell you there was one dramatic moment, one altar call, one flash of lightning. But that is not how it happened. It started with a prayer so simple it felt foolish. I got on my knees and said, "God, I can't fix my own mouth. I have tried and failed for 60 years. Please, give me a new heart. Because if you change what's inside of me, maybe what comes out will finally be different." And that prayer became my daily bread, every morning. Give me a new heart. Put a guard over my lips. Help me be slow to speak. I learned that no man can tame the tongue by willpower alone. The scriptures are clear about that. It takes a surrender deeper than discipline. It takes letting God rebuild you from the inside out. And then the letters started. At first I wrote them because a counselor told me to. But then they became something sacred. I would sit at this desk and write to people I had wounded, some of them decades ago, and tell them the truth. No excuses. No, but you also did this. Just the raw truth. I was wrong, I hurt you, and I am sorry. Some people wrote back, most didn't. But the letters changed me, because they forced me to slow down, to think before I put words on paper. And that slowness began to bleed into my speaking. I became what the scriptures call slow to speak. Not because I ran out of words, but because I finally learned that some words should never leave your mouth. I don't know who is listening to this. Maybe you are young and you think your words don't carry weight yet. They do. Maybe you are my age and you have your own box of letters. Maybe you are somewhere in the middle, and you can still feel the sting of something you said last week. Wherever you are, I am asking you, not telling you, asking you, to stop. Before you speak the next sharp word to your wife, before you criticize your child one more time, before you gossip about your coworker or tear apart your pastor over Sunday lunch, stop and ask yourself, is what I am about to say going to build something or burn it down? Because silence is not weakness. I spent my whole life thinking that the loudest voice wins. It doesn't. The loudest voice just empties the room. Real strength is the man who has something sharp on his tongue and chooses to swallow it. Real power is letting the Spirit of God filter your words before they reach another person's ears. I am 65. My box of letters is almost full. And the greatest regret of my life is not the money I didn't make or the career I didn't have. It is the words I can never unsay. Use your voice to heal someone today. Use it to encourage your children. Use it to speak life into your marriage. Use it to lift up the people around you while they can still hear you. Because one day, you will sit where I am sitting. And the only question that will matter is not what you built, but what you said. And whether the people you love are still close enough to hear you say, "I'm sorry." I have one more letter to write today. I don't know if it will ever be read, but I will write it anyway. Because even if my words arrive too late, at least they will be the right ones.